Americans who've been to or traveled to Europe, what's something Europe has changed in your mind that now you can't let go?
Just the way that people talk here in America, so loud, so shiny. And the way they think it's better to have a big smile on their face than to have their natural facial expression. People in Vienna don't tolerate that.
I spent 7 weeks in Iceland, and I learned that according to Icelandic politics, Bernie Sanders is considered far right.
Okay, so I only found out about this recently, and it kind of blew my mind. But I watched a TikTok of a lady who worked on a farm, and she basically went on to say, like grocery stores and stuff like that hold auctions, and in these auctions they sell off near expired or expired food stock that they can't sell to us and we're not going to buy or eat, and they sell it to farmers, and farmers use it to feed their livestock. So what that basically means is the same processed garbage that we eat from grocery stores every day is being fed to livestock to keep them sustained with, a few pieces of carrot and apple chopped up into it. Like, there were Ritz crackers in this trough of food that they were gonna Ritz crackers, bro.
I am so glad you asked. Healthcare. And I'm not referring to universal healthcare, although that is a great perk. I am talking about the level or standard of care that you receive as a patient. For example, I sprained my wrist while snowboarding. And although there was a language barrier, they x-rayed, splinted, wrapped, dressed, did everything that they could to make sure that my wrist was going to heal properly. And went into detail about what was happening to my body and how I could aid my body in its healing process. Again, language barrier, but they really did try. When I broke these same wrists in the United States a few years later, I was told to ice, elevate, and it would be in a cast for 6 to 7 weeks. I was only in it for 5 weeks, though. Then, when I got my cast off, I was very likely going to need physical therapy for my mobility. However, I was told by the PA that I won't need physical therapy because my wrist can bend enough.
Living in Europe for the last couple of years has taught me more than anything that the propaganda surrounding the United States being the best country on earth does one of two things. It either makes you complacent in being taken advantage of by the oligarchs, or it villainizes you for speaking out against your exploitation. But walking around saying you're the best country on earth does nothing to improve the country itself. But saying that you're the best country on earth really helps keep those who are in power, and those voices who are suppressed continue to be suppressed.
Well, I won't go bankrupt if I get sick in Europe, and I won't be poisoned by that country's food supply. I won't be subjected to laws and policies that harm marginalized groups. I won't live under a rapidly deteriorating political environment that's slowly stripping away your personal freedoms and rights. I won't be force-fed somebody else's religious beliefs when I may think something differently. I can actually walk outside and breathe clean air. I can see people having access to free education, so they're a smarter society, a healthier society. And finally, I can feel like I'm part of something bigger, like being in a community where people actually give a shit about one another.
A lot of people are going to say the food, and you're not wrong. Because America's food is so much more processed, it takes like 2 months for your stomach to actually acclimate back to all of that. So for the first 2 months, you're going to probably be sick. But something I really realized after talking to a lot of people from Europe is that, unlike Americans, their job isn't like their main source of pride. In America, we tend to really boast about how many hours we're putting into the grind of our job. Whereas in Europe, they don't really tend to do that. Not to say that they're not proud of what they do for work, but they tend to have a lot of different things that they're more proud of than how long they work and where they work for so long. I'm not saying that culture is not shifting, especially with millennials and Gen Z and Alpha, but it's definitely something I noticed and definitely something I wanted to change.
The fact that I quite literally need an insurance for everything where I live. So for those of you who don't know, I am a US American originally from Atlanta, Georgia, and I now live in the Nuremberg area in Bavaria, Germany. I had no idea that certain types of insurances in other parts of the world existed. In the United States, I guarantee you, more people have car insurance than have health insurance. And here, I've got health insurance, car insurance, personal liability insurance as a self-employed individual, legal insurance as a self-employed individual, accident insurance, I'm no longer able to work insurance, retirement insurance, private retirement insurance. Almost forgot about dental. Homeowners insurance. What should I insure next?
We always talk shit about the States. Someone who is American, you are always seeing like the cons about being an American and living in the States. But one thing that I learned that was like of all the good things, and I felt lucky to be living in the States, was from Italy. I lived in Italy for about 6 months. And I have realized that as a young person, if you have the spirit of an entrepreneur and you're not 50 years old, it is so hard for you to get the resources and the credibility to just do it. Additionally, it's not as easy to fail and just open another startup the way it is here in California and Silicon Valley. And that, like, learning from failure came from the States. So it made me realize I feel really lucky to be a young person who has aspirations and who has an American passport.
The main thing that opened my eyes when I went to Europe, and this was when I was a teenager. I went to France. I've been to France twice, and I've been to England, and I've been to Austria. The main thing that I noticed was the food. Even though that food is super rich, I still lost weight because there aren't the additives that we add in our food are banned over there. So even if you eat more than you would have ever eaten over here, over there, you still will lose weight because a lot of their food isn't modified. And on top of that, how they price their food is different. Like, it's the opposite of what we do over here. So that was a big eye-opener for me in particular.
I got tagged in this several times, so here we go. For context, I am from Texas, but I live in Germany. So we live in the country, like, I'm a country gal now. Very tiny village. Lots of livestock, cornfields, like country. And anyways, there are trails everywhere. We can walk out of our house and there are trails in every direction for miles. You can just hop on a trail and bike and walk to the next town. A lot of these trails go through people's property. It's their farmland, like they own it, and I'm walking through it. When we first got here, there were so many times where I thought, okay, I'm not supposed to be here and I'm going to get SHOT. Because if you're walking through or stumble upon somebody's property in Texas, you better be careful. Here, that is completely normal, and it took me a solid year to get used to. And not very many people own guns, so...
So my answer is security. You feel so much safer in Switzerland. I live in Switzerland. I've been here about almost 7 years this year, and we just don't have the same security concerns. My 4-year-old walks to preschool by himself. He knows how to cross the street and everything. You don't have kids getting yelled, like snatched up. And my example was going to be that people literally leave their strollers outside of stores, and there's a stroller behind me that was parked there while the parent went in to buy baked goods. That's what people do here, and my list could go on. Safety, security, cleanliness, education, geography. It's a long list. I mean, I definitely want to move back to the US one day, but with kids, it definitely feels better in Europe, right?
I could write a novel about my experiences, but I'm going to talk about one specifically. I went to Finland back in December and decided to take the bus across town. I was horrified when I saw these very, very small children get on the bus completely by themselves. They were probably like 7 and 5 years old. My first thought was they're lost, they lost their parents, they're in danger, they need help, but they were totally fine. They were carrying sleds, they were laughing, they were joking around, and then they got off the bus. And it's because Finland is one of the safest countries in the world. Parents there are not worried about their children getting kidnapped or anything bad happening to them, really, because it's very rare. I know a parent in the state of New York who got charged with child abuse for letting their 10-year-old kid ride the New York City subway by themselves. Meanwhile, me as a black woman, if I decide to have a child, obviously they're going to be black. There's going to come a day where I have to explain to them that it's not okay for them to sit outside and play with their toys because they could get shot by the police. That's the US for you.